Hey, good evening, everybody. As you can see, I'm here solo for the moment. Matt is traveling from the Great White North down to South Florida today. He is hoping to be home and in time to at least join us for part of the show, but we don't know. And if it's Matt and his traveling, I'm sure things are going swimmingly for him, but he'll join us if he can. Um, Thank everyone for showing up. Those of you that are here know it is what is it? Christmas Eve? Eve? Yeah, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, right? Yeah, tomorrow's the 24th. So appreciate everybody for showing up on the eve of Christmas Eve. Hope everybody has their plans in place, all their presents purchased, and no one's running around at the last minute trying to put things together. We've got some actually we've got some pretty good stories here as for a Christmas present for everyone. We've got update on the trial for the judge in taking out or trying to sneak out the illegal immigrant. Senator Rand Paul's put together a list of the fraud, waste, and abuse perpetrated by the federal government. Hey Troy, how are things going? We're going to take a look at that. We've got you guys remember back when BLM was a raging thing and the riots were burning down cities all across America. And we had all these funds going around bailing out these uh, rioters, these arsonists, the looters, all of that. Well, the bailing out portion of this has persisted. Um, and a lot of it, I had seen, little stories here and there where this leftist organization here helped bail this person out, the other. There's one here we're going to look at here in a few minutes that is a freaking tragedy by the judge, by this institution, and all of this. It's a horrible thing that had taken place, and we're gonna take a look at that and see how I want to say the road to hell being paved with good intentions, but it is just it's almost intentional destruction of society and what they're trying to do. It really really is. We're going to take a look at that. Take a look at that story and the multiple way in which things just fell apart and failed all the way around on that one that led to a tragedy. Let's see here. We've got again this Boasberg guy. He is in the news every single time we turn around. And I guess it's because he has somehow, even though they're handed out, randomly with no round robin style, he seems to have just been granted the lion's share of all of these federal lawsuits that have been filed against Trump in the DC circuit. This guy is just the luckiest one on the face of the planet. He's the one that's getting all of them, and he's earning his appointment by I believe he's an Obama appointee. Doesn't specify in this one, but I believe reading before he's an Obama appointee. But yeah, he's definitely earning his appointment for the Democrats. That's for absolutely sure. I think that's pretty much it that we're going to be able to get to. But that'll get us a decent story. Um, oh, Troy said this the other way around. The road to good intentions is paved with hell. And you know what? You might not be wrong. That is a very good spin on it because it actually works either way. And yeah, their good intentions that they're trying to get to are definitely putting everyone else through a hell of its own. But we'll start with the judge here first of all. Judge Hannah Dugan And you guys all know the story. Wisconsin judge, she had in front of her for the day an illegal immigrant that was being charged with a crime. The victim's family was present. The illegal immigrant was there with his attorney. The state was there as the prosecutor. And I showed up at the courthouse with the warrant for his arrest. Well, she finds out that ICE is there and gets her panties all twisted and storms out of her courtroom into the hallway to confront ICE, is berating them about their warrant and telling them that it's wrong. They need a judicial warrant versus I think it's a civil warrant or something. I can't remember the difference. She was saying they needed a judicial warrant and they had some other warrant. Well, then she sends them on a wild goose chase up to the chief judge's office, says they need to go talk to him. And while she's doing this, she completely disregards the what's supposed to be going on in her own courtroom with this illegal immigrant and just ignores the prosecution, ignores the victim's family that's there, and just shuttles him out the back door and into the street. Well, ICE is kind of caught onto her game. They're monitoring what's going on. They're downstairs when the guy leaves the courthouse. A chase ensues through traffic, everything else. ICE apprehends him. Well, she goes on to trial and is trying to say, oh, I deserve judicial immunity because I was just carrying out my job in the way I saw fit. And the jury did not buy it. They did not buy it at all. So she was found guilty in this for felony charge for obstructing the ICE arrest in the courthouse. Now, obviously, she's going to appeal. We actually have, because this happened earlier in the week, was where she was found guilty. We've already got some news that's come out concerning her appeals route. We'll look at that in a few minutes. But with it being a felony, if I remember correctly, the punishment could be up to 5 years in prison. But the even sweeter part of that would be, as a felon, she would most likely be disbarred and she would be basically unqualified to hold a judgeship, or I believe it's even any public office in the state of Wisconsin. But right here's what we were talking about. Dugan distracted the ICE team by challenging their civil arrest warrant instead of a judicial is what she was saying they needed, directing them to speak with the chief judge and then cutting short the criminal proceeding. Now, this immigrant wasn't there for a parking ticket. He was there for a criminal proceeding. And she shuts him out the door and back out into the public. And allows Flores Ruiz to exit through a non-public door. The non-public door they're referencing here is exiting out through the judge's chambers, if I remember correctly. It says, after leaving Duggan's courtroom, Flores reached the street before ICE agents chased and tackled him through traffic. Right here, they're saying that her team, Dugan's defense team, plans to appeal, arguing her actions fell within judicial duties and that courthouses are special places where people should access without fearing civil entanglements. Okay, this is an illegal immigrant criminal that they're detaining for deportation. Immigration proceedings are civil matters with deportation consequences, not criminal matters. Right. The immigration proceedings are civil matters. The crimes that he has committed up to this point are not. That's why he needs to be off the streets. And I'll be honest with you, with the actions that this judge took in protecting this person and trying to thwart ICE in their detention of him. I can't imagine her going very hard on this guy, whatever his criminal, past was, whatever he was, in front of her for. I can't remember. It's been too long now. I can't remember the initial charges that he was being brought up on in front of her. But Troy says that he's guessing she'll get the lowest possible punishment, and that was honestly what I was assuming as well. I just, as much as I want it to be true, I would be shocked if she spent any time in jail. I would be happy with, that's what I would be ecstatic about if she did. But we will most likely, once the appeals go through and if everything sticks, we'll probably have to be satisfied with the fact that, this judge lost herself her seat. And that's what we're going to have to deal with. But no, that was the story I couldn't. Here's the other one. Nope, that's not it. I had another. Okay, this is the one here. So we talked about her being convicted, and actually, Freedom saying she declined a plea deal that was offered. Well, probably because she thought she was going to skate out, that the jury would of her quote unquote peers in Wisconsin would realize that she was fighting the good fight and just trying to protect the poor innocent didn't do nothing from the racist white mob that's disappearing people off of the streets. But we had talked about the jury and the proceedings in which she was found guilty, and they've come up asking, or they're saying, will a judge toss the verdict? Her defense team hopes so. I think they're talking about an appeals court judge. Now, what I was looking at here is, I was trying to read it to make sense of it. I'm not an attorney. The way the story's written is not very good. So I'll give you my best take on what they're talking about here. Troy says, should you have a 15 minutes of public service and an apology in a low circulation newspaper on page 32B, Troy? Don't forget that. We can't have it anywhere close to the top. But her trial lasted for 4 days. The jury deliberated 6 hours before finding her guilty of felony obstruction and not guilty of a misdemeanor concealment charge. Now, I'm going to read you what they're saying, and then I'm going to give you my completely unqualified take on it. So basically what happened is, right here, the jury asked about whether Duggan, this is for the misdemeanor charge she was acquitted of. The jury asked about whether Duggan would have to know the identity of the subject in the ICE arrest warrant as it relates to the language in the charges. The defense argued Duggan would have to know, based on the wording of the indictment, that the warrant was for Eduardo Flores. Prosecutors said Duggan would only need to know if there was a warrant for a specific person, not a name. Now, this is talking about based on the wording of the indictment. And like I said, I don't understand all of it completely, but what happened is, after they were told she would only, all right, after some deliberation, the judge sided with the defense and instructed the jurors that Duggan needed to know the identity of the subject of the warrant in order to be found guilty of this misdemeanor charge. Now, what happened and where the controversy is coming in is there was a second question relating to the felony charge, basically asking the same thing. A similar question came up later in deliberations with the jury, asking if Dugan needed to know the identity of the subject of the pending proceeding. Prosecutor said Dugan did not, while the defense argued that she did. So they're still arguing, each side still arguing the same side of the coin. But the judge decided for the prosecution and to tell the jury that Dugan needed to know of the pending proceeding. The defendant needed to have sufficient knowledge of the proceedings. Dugan was found guilty of this obstruction charge. Now, my thing is here, the top one here seems to hinge on the way it was written in the indictment. But this misdemeanor thing seems to be, okay, she needed to know the identity of the subject of the warrant. And supposedly she did not. And she was found not guilty of this. Now, this other one here is talking about just the proceeding, like the arrest proceeding. She knew of that. And so that's what they're saying. She didn't need to know who exactly it was they were trying to arrest, only that there was a proceeding that was taking place and she interfered with that. Now, the defense team is jumping on this and saying, well, these are, answered one way on one side, another way on another side. I don't know enough about the specifics as to why it would be one way in one and a different way in another one. My guess is the way the indictment was written and maybe the misdemeanor concealment, maybe they're saying that she would have to know who it was she was concealing. She would have to know that the warrant was for that specific person to then be aware that she was concealing the person that they were looking for, if that makes sense. That's the only way I can kind of see that. But then, okay, well, for the sake of argument, just say she didn't know it was for this specific person. She just knew they were there with an arrest warrant. Well, then she takes and knows there's this proceeding going. She takes this person here that she has, shuffles them out. So at that point, to me, she's acting as if it's the person that she is, working with or helping or whatever. She's acting as if she believes he is who they're looking for. And so then she interferes with it. So she believes she's interfering with it, and she is, and now she has a felony conviction. I don't know if any of that made sense to you guys. It kind of confused me the first time I read it, and I can't say it didn't confuse me again trying to read it again and explain it. Oh wow, Freedom said that Flores has since been deported, and the judge should be at this point too. Yeah, you know what? It'd be nice if we could facilitate some of that. But this is kind of what's going on with this one. It'll be interesting. Like I said, they're absolutely going to appeal, and it'll probably be appealed for the next 2 years. But that's my best guess at this without having the specific verbiage of everything and, not being a lawyer too. But that would be kind of just my take on it is for the first part, because it's misdemeanor concealment. They're arguing that, well, she didn't know that they were there specifically for him. So she can't be found guilty of concealing him because she didn't know that. But for the next one, it isn't really the fact that they need no specific person, just that they're there for a specific proceeding. She knows what that proceeding is. And with the action she took with Flores, seems to me she reasonably believed he was the person they were there for. And therefore she interfered with it. That's the best way I can phrase it as to maybe what I think happened and how they did it. Troy said Flores can return the favor and house her in Mexico. Yeah, that'll be hide her from the Mexican authorities so she doesn't get deported there. Yeah, that'd be nice. But that was pretty much it on that story. But we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. We've been watching this one as it's developed, and we'll continue to do so and bring it up. But I guess this will roll right into the next story, since we're talking about deportation and judges, and that's this guy here. This is the Judge Boasberg. Like we said, he somehow has gotten a vast number of Trump cases directed over to him. It's supposed to be blind round robin type deal of you get case 3, you get case 4, this other guy get cases 5 and 6. But somehow this guy needs to buy some freaking lottery tickets, because he has been getting Trump cases for years. And it's all of these, the ones these Democrats like to beat their drums for. And he is earning his appointment. He absolutely is. And what they're saying now, the thing, and this is my understanding with some of these deportations and everything else, especially these were ones here that he's throwing this out now. All right. He issued a ruling claiming the federal government violated the due process rights of a group of Venezuelan illegal immigrants that it deported to El Salvador earlier this year. All right. The individuals who were sent to El Salvador were housed in the country's mega prison, which has been criticized for alleged human rights abuses. Not our problem, not our prison. The Trump administration invoked the Aliens Enemies Act to justify the deportations and clashed with Boasberg on multiple occasions in 2025. Now, if I remember correctly, they invoked this Alien Administrations Act because these were the Tren de Aragua gang members that they were saying had been sent here by Venezuela, or I'm sorry, El Salvador and Venezuela. Venezuela illegal immigrants deported to El Salvador. That they have been sent here. You know, Venezuela is basically a drug fueled country. But Boasberg's held that the government still had authority over the deportees, even though, again, they're not U.S. citizens and they're in prison in another country. All right. So he was saying that the government still had authority over them. Okay. They were later sent back to Venezuela. This means the court still has the power to hear their habeas corpus claims. So these Venezuelan immigrants were deported to El Salvador and then sent back to Venezuela. And this judge is saying the U.S. still has jurisdiction over non-U.S. citizens in their home country for sending them back home. And the best thing I've heard is, so if someone breaks into your house and you give them a ride back home, you're breaking the law because you didn't call the police and ask them if it was okay for you to do so. So that's what said. What he's saying is, in his ruling, Boasberg said the men were deported with virtually no notice and no opportunity to contest the basis of their removal, in clear contravention of their due process rights. Now, again, from what I remember reading when we talked about this before, the way they were deported, the mechanism that was used, their due process was you're not here legally, get out, and we're going to help you get there. And what he's wanting to do, he's wanting to set a precedent that every single person that gets deported, no matter what, has to go through this long, drawn-out process to choke the system to a standstill. Because he knows for a fact there's what Biden let in 20 million. So we're going to have 20 million processes here, 20 million hearings for these people to contest the basis of their removal, and 20 million continuances, and 20 million appeals, and 20 million of the bullshit that continues to go on each and every time. The entire goal here is for him to be able to set a precedent that there is no mechanism in which the executive branch can say, you are here illegally, you are here as a gang member, you are here, doing what you're doing, it's illegal, you're going home. That's the goal, to choke the process to its standstill to where it's completely and totally ineffective. Excuse me. That's what he's doing. That's the only thing. There's no other way. It said the court lays out 3 conclusions. And again, apparently he's just deciding this on his own. Firstly, it found the federal government retained constructive custody, which means the El Salvadoran government was acting as a proxy for the U.S., meaning the men were still under U.S. control. Okay. Secondly, the court established that it has the authority to hear their habeas corpus cases and certify the group of all non-citizens removed from U.S. custody and transferred to the SCIF in El Salvador on March 15th and 16th, pursuant solely to the presidential proclamation. Lastly, Boasberg determined that this group was denied their due process rights and will thus require the government to facilitate their ability to obtain such a hearing. So, yeah. That's what's going on. And it absolutely amazes me that this is allowed, this is allowed to stand. We've got this Twitter note in the middle here. Conservatives are demanding the immediate impeachment of rogue Judge James Boasberg after he ordered a hearing in due process for over 130 Venezuelan illegal alien criminals removed under the Alien Enemies Act. And we've talked about this. From what I can understand, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, the way the impeachment works for one of these federal judges is the same bar, the same voting requirements that are required for the President of the United States. That I believe it's the House has to bring the charges, and then the Senate has the trial and the vote. And the Republicans are so squishy that we've talked about this before, and you can't convince me that Republicans want to be in charge. You just can't. I don't believe it. Just name for me one thing Republicans have done that has not been driven by Trump. And go back years, go back decades. What have they done? I'm firmly convinced they want to be in the minority and just moan about what the Democrats are doing and how if you just donate more money to their reelection campaign, by golly, they're going to fight against it. And they have had opportunity after opportunity to do so and have consistently, I would say, failed to live up to expectations, but they've actually met my expectation, and that is that they do absolutely nothing. Again, I've said multiple times, they're probably enough in DC that I can count on one hand and probably still have fingers left over of people that are there and trying to do the right thing. I have seen nothing that would convince me otherwise. I just haven't. And the fact that this individual still has a job is Exhibit A. Just the fact that he is allowed to do this, and that the executive branch doesn't say, okay, Bose, what was it? Was it John Adams? No, it was one of the presidents when the court made a ruling. He's like, okay, the court's made their ruling. Now let's see them enforce it, because it's complete nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. That is, the only goal is to jam up the administration and to flood the courts and to basically make them unusable. And it's giving then everyone a de facto amnesty. If you completely jam the courts to where you're not getting a trial for decades, 20 million people, 20 million, that's just that Biden brought in, not counting the ones that were here before that, 20 million. That's the goal. That's the only thing it could be. But let me see here. Okay, so that's the two stories concerning judges and immigration and the lack thereof. So it's, on one, it's a good sign with the judge that was found guilty of the interference with ICE and the process there. But this Boasberg, he is the thorn that is stuck. He is hanging in there and causing as much damage as humanly possible. And I can guarantee, if after Trump's, if he stays as a judge, or I'm sorry, if he steps down as a judge after Trump's term, I can guarantee you he will show up at some liberal college somewhere as a professor, getting paid for, as getting his payment as a good soldier for the cause. He will be taken care of. He'll wind up at some university. He'll wind up in some think tank or something of that sort, where he's sucking up money from a liberal enclave of some sort. Now, for the other stories here, the one I wanted to bring up, we had Doge running for a while when Trump first came in, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's between Trump and Elon, the room wasn't big enough for the two egos. I don't know. I love what Trump does. I love how he does about 90% of what he does, but I think sometimes he can be his own worst enemy in some circumstances. And Matt will have the other side. Well, the left is never going to like you anyway. They're always going to misrepresent whatever you do and everything else. And I agree, they will. My point is, as an advocate for Trump, if the left is misrepresenting, if they are lying about it, you can show that. The Charlottesville hoax, the good people on both sides, you can show that video and show where it was edited. or where, no, I'm sorry, not where it was edited, where they cut it off, where they misrepresent what he says. The BBC, we talked about that, where it came out where the BBC took and spliced in his speech on January 6th. They took one part of his speech and then spliced it and picked it up with somewhere like it was 18 or 20 minutes later in his speech and made it seem like all of that was back to back in the speech to completely misrepresent and mischaracterize what it was he said. But by the left doing that, you can show the truth. Now, when I feel, in my opinion, when Trump makes a misstep and, you know, what I'll call an unforced error, you can't, it's the truth. You can't, you can't defend that. It is, yep, you're right. He said that. Yep, that was, I all you can do is I don't agree with what he did. I mean, if I'm going to defend him, I mean, I would much rather be doing it from, you know, the left's misrepresentation, misconstruing of the facts and everything else. Because whenever he does do something, that the Rob Reiner thing, the statement he made after, you know, Rob Reiner and his wife were found, to me, that's an unforced error. He could have said the same thing, but had it be non-controversial. It could have easily come out and said, you know, Rob Reiner and I had our disagreements. He was an avid anti-Trumper. You know, we disagreed on policies. We disagreed on politics. Sometimes I feel he may have taken things too far. Nevertheless, it's a tragedy. Something to that effect, you know. But when you take what he did say, and then when the left uses that, when you're trying to, you know, talk to somebody that's on the fence, somebody that, you know, might come around to your side, it just makes it an uphill battle. When, you know, I sometimes don't think we should. It's like I said, an unforced error. We can do things differently, say things differently, and not make the effort to bring people over to our side, to our point of view, more difficult. With that being said, got off on a little bit of a tangent, started talking about Elon Musk, Doge. They did some work. I mean, I don't think you could probably have 2 decades of Doge and still find stuff. The federal government's entirely too bloated. They're doing entirely too much stuff that is just absolutely senseless that our money's being spent on. And Senator Rand Paul, love him, hate him, whatever. I agree with him on some things, disagree with him on other things, but if he's nothing else, he's consistent. He's brought up what he's calling his Festivus report. It's a Seinfeld reference for those of you that are as old as I am. And it flags $1.6 trillion in waste. Trillion with a T. This is the part to me here is like, okay, you guys are in the Senate. You control funding. But because they've not done a budget in I don't know how many decades, they do these stupid continuing resolution omnibus bills. They've given up their ability to control this because nobody in the Senate wants to be pegged as the one that voted for this specific thing or against this specific thing. So they roll it all up into this omnibus bill, and there's so much crap that gets plugged in there from each senator, each representative, that it is unmanageable. It just is. And this is what happens here. So you wind up with this. And let's see, yep, totaling over $1.6 trillion over the past year. The report estimated 1,639,135,969. Wait, shit, I lost dollars somewhere. Million, billion, I don't know. Too many freaking commas in there for what I'm saying. Government waste, including massive interest payments on the national debt, which, by the way, we'll look at that here in a second. So here's some of the things we've got. Department of Health and Human Services spent $1.5 million on innovative multi-level strategy using celebrity influencers to reduce drug use in so-called Latinx communities. $1.9 million on a mobile phone-based intervention aimed at reducing childhood obesity among Latino families in Los Angeles County. All right, now let's back up. $1.9 million on a mobile phone-based intervention. How much you want to bet that was spam texts? All right, and it'd be bad enough, 1.9 million on a mobile phone-based intervention aimed at reducing childhood obesity. That'd be bad enough, 1.9 million. But then we go to among Latino families. Okay, we just pared it down to a percentage of the population in Los Angeles County. Okay, so in one county, in one ethnic group, they spent almost $2 million to send out text messages. In addition, HHS spent more than $40 million paying social media influencers to promote COVID-19 vaccinations to racial and ethnic minority groups. This is the same COVID-19 vaccination that is now coming out through DHS and HHS that, oh, wait, maybe some of these complications, maybe there's something to these. We need to look into them a little bit more. But so let's see, HHS, there's 42 million, 43, $44 million from HHS on 3 programs that are, why? The State Department flagged for questionable spending, including $250,000 for a Pakistani organization to produce a cartoon teaching children how to fight climate change, along with $1.5 million to promote American films, television shows, and video games overseas. So, sending out our propaganda. Department of Veterans Affairs, which spent more than $1 million on experiments teaching teenage ferrets to binge drink alcohol. This one here, I don't know. I'm just saying maybe, just for the sake of argument, they're using the to see how the alcohol affects the brain to do, I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of for that. So some of these, when it comes to this, some animals with their the way they're, like, for, I think it's is it a pig? The heart of a pig is most similar to a human heart. There's some things with animals that we can do experiments and we can try things because they're so very similar to a human. Maybe this is one of those. I don't know. I'm just checking. Now, this other one here, animal-related project included federal funding to dose dogs with cocaine and conduct controversial experiments on beagles, monkeys, and rats. Now, my my lab is absolutely berserk on a diet of water and dog food and chewy treats. I cannot imagine him on cocaine. That would be, he would be wound tight and ready to go. Now, what we were talking about here, Paul warned that the waste comes as the national debt, which part of this was service on interest for the debt, surged to nearly 40 trillion just 1 year after crossing 36 trillion. That's the debt. That's not how much we spend every year. That's our debt. So just 1 year after crossing the 36 trillion, we're another 4 trillion in debt. So how much did we spend of money that we took in to still go an additional $4 trillion in debt? And Congress recently voted to raise the debt ceiling by 5 trillion, the largest increase in history. I don't even know why we have a ceiling at this point, because I cannot again, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I cannot remember a time that Congress has voted not to increase the debt ceiling. If they have, please let me know. Because everyone that I can remember, they voted to increase it. So if there's one of those out there, I missed it, cool. But at this point, it's like, why? It's performative. It's so whatever senator, whatever representative can get up there and just, again, do the Republican of bitch and moan and complain and act as if they're doing something and vote for it in the end. Okay. The federal government is now adding more than 6.5 billion in debt every day, borrowing roughly $75,000 every second. And this is why when you look, and actually it's coming up here in January. What are we all doing at the end of January? We're filing our federal income tax. So as you guys are sitting there and looking at the minimum of 25% of the money you earned, Uncle Sam's, just know that they are continuing to borrow $75,000 every second for all the bullshit that they're continuing to fund. And my wife and I will talk about this every so often. You know, a lot of people just look at their federal taxes and, oh, the government's taking, you know, between state and federal, you know, 28% of my income. I'm paying 28% in taxes. Oh no, dear child. You figure what you're paying in your sales tax or in your income tax. And then you look at what you pay every time you go and buy something, the sales tax. Then you go look at what you pay your fuel tax. Then you go look at, your cell phone. Look at all the charges and the fees associated on that. Look at your vehicle every year, your property tax every year. Everything that you're doing, I would not hesitate to say that with everything that we're taxed on, it would be at least, it would probably hover right around 50% of your income goes to taxes every year. I've threatened many times to just keep all of my receipts for a year and then total up all of the sales tax, but I can't bring myself to do it because it would be a bad day. It'd be a bad day. But that's what our government's spending money on, and just the amount of debt that we continue to go into that winds up going to these other countries and all this. And there's always this, oh, well, yeah, but it's in dollars and it's spent and it's this and that and it stimulates the other. But we're borrowing it. We're paying interest on it. It's not as if we're taking in and we're getting out of debt. It's not generating the revenue to get us out of debt. Every time we turn around, we're further and further and further into debt. And that's going to go here to our last story. Oh, Freedom's got up here. He says, every few days, Doge provides contract savings updates on X. The last headline was 214 billion in savings. And that's amazing. But I hate to sound this way because any progress is good progress. But it would be so much better if it was just a multitude more. If it was, 6 trillion in savings over 10, something, because this just isn't sustainable. I don't understand how this, house of cards is going to continue to be built. But our last story here, we're going back to lovely Minnesota and Tim Walz. He has had nearly 100 mayors sign on to a letter denouncing the widespread fraud and the unfunded state mandates that are coming down. And there's a part of this story I didn't realize, but it really drives home the damage that this fraud, it's been allowed to happen. And they're actually taking and defending the people that are committing the fraud. And we're going to show the monetary damage that it is doing to the state of Minnesota in particular, and just extrapolate that to the rest of the country where this is going on. So the Cross Lake Mayor Jackson First authored the letter to Walz and state lawmakers, which he said represents a rare, unified voice from mayors representing communities of all sizes, who say state-level fiscal decisions are driving higher property tax levies, constraining public safety staffing, and forcing delays to critical infrastructure investments. They're saying here, fraud, unchecked spending, and inconsistent fiscal management in St. Paul have trickled down to our cities, reducing our capacity to plan responsibly, maintain infrastructure, hire and retain employees, and sustain core services without overburdening local taxpayers. And what's happened, all right, the letter laments that, here we go, a historic 18 billion surplus. So basically they had a rainy day fund. 18 billion disappeared in a single biennium, which I had to look this up. I'd not seen that word before. I figured I knew what it was, and I was right. It's a 2-year time span, a 2-year time frame. So $18 billion surplus disappeared in 2 years, and taxpayers now face an updated projected 2.9 to 3 billion deficit in the 28-29 biennium, decisions that will ripple out towards them, them being the rest of the states in Minnesota that are signing on to this. So this is where that money's going. Matt and I talked about this a few weeks ago. All of this fraud in the community with the medical health care, with this feeding families, and all of this that has been allowed to take place, and it's just exploded. Nobody's at the helm. Nobody's driving the ship. It's just full speed ahead. Damn the torpedoes! It's going, and that is what they've done. They've blown through an $18 billion surplus. There's no telling how many years it took for them to build this surplus for the state, for emergencies, for unforeseen issues. This fraud is very foreseen. It's very predictable. It's nobody did the whole the school lunch thing. This small restaurant was saying they were putting out 5,000 meals a day. 5,000. And nobody thought to, oh, well, maybe let's spot check some of this. It's absolutely bizarre. But yeah, Freedoms, let's see. Yeah, and he's absolutely right. He says, I admire those mayors, but unfortunately, they mostly oversee small towns, only a couple from around the metros. And that's the thing. And that's, unfortunately, he hit it right on the head. The people in Minneapolis don't care because they're from smaller towns. They don't really, for lack of a better term, they don't matter, which is the exact same thing our federal government does to the smaller states, the smaller communities. We don't matter as far as they are concerned. We're a detriment. We're in the way. We're the problem. But I appreciate everyone joining. That was the last show that I had for the evening. I guess Matt was not able to get on. I've not heard from him today. I hope his travel's going well. If not, good luck. I hope it goes better for you tomorrow. Thank you everybody for joining. Let me see here. Let me look at something. Okay. We will see you guys again before next year. As far as I know, we will be here on the 30th. If that changes, Matt, I promise you, we will put out a quick something before the day of, letting you guys know everything's being pushed. I suspect we will be here. I don't see a reason why I won't. I can't speak for Matt because he's not here. But we should be. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you, Freedom, to Troy, to everyone else that's out there. We appreciate everyone. You guys have a good Christmas. If in the event we are not here on the 30th, have a happy New Year as well. Everyone be safe. Enjoy the time with your family. Enjoy what matters. And we will, somebody will see you guys next week. Thank you very much.